To clean and use our rainwater, we first need to figure out how much we can capture. Let's start by locating areas on your property where you can easily collect the rain.
In our landscapes, we have non-permeable surfaces where pretty much all of the rainwater runs off. These are typically roofs, sidewalks, patios, grouted pavers, and driveways. Semi-permeable surfaces are those in which some water, but not a lot, sinks into the soil. Examples of semi-permeable surfaces are gravel and decomposed granite. Because it's difficult for organic material to survive underneath, there's little or no healthy soil to create storage space for the water. Permeable surfaces are the areas that easily absorb water. These are typically landscaped areas that have been amended with compost and topped with mulch. These amendments feed the soil food web, which helps the living soil create spaces to store water. Living soil behaves more like a sponge than a brick. To maximize our rain storage potential and collateral environmental benefits, we should do everything we can to protect and nourish the beneficial microbes that sustain the soil's structure and air spaces. Remember, these beneficial microbes break down the pollutants in the first flush of rainwater, which results in less pollution in our watersheds and the ocean. A great way to capture the rainwater running off non-permeable and semi-permeable surfaces is to direct it towards permeable areas where it can be spread, stored, and cleaned by your healthy, spongy soil. This is your sustainable solution. Capturing rainwater starts by examining how water moves through your own mini watershed.
The water from the roof, the gutters would go straight into a 3-inch landscape pipe and drain straight to the street. The way I capture that is through gutter downspouts, and they go into a dry creek bed. And the dry creek bed has water retention as it's draining down the creek bed and water retention at the end. Kind of creates a short-term small pond.
To help you visualize your mini watershed, first create a plot plan. A plot plan shows the particulars of your property, where property lines are located, where buildings, hardscape, and landscape are sited, and special features of your property, such as hills or slopes. Let's take a moment to talk about slopes. Knowing the percentage of a slope will help you understand the speed at which water will run down it. The steeper it is, the faster the water moves, and the less time it has to sink into the soil. It will need special treatment such as mulch to slow it down. You can determine the actual slope of your yard by measuring its rise and run, or by comparing it to the image here. Use soil building mulch to slow the water flowing off slopes.
Perfect.
One of the most obvious surfaces from which to capture rainwater is your roof, which acts as a mini watershed. Track where the water falls on your roof. This is the top of your watershed. Then mark the location of any gutters or downspouts you have. If there's an underground drainage pipe connecting the downspout to the curb, make note of that. If you don't have gutters, look where the water flows off each side of the roof. This is the bottom of your watershed, and the place where your water will be spread and stored. To find out how much space you'll need to store the first flush of rain in your landscape, you'll need to know how much to collect from your roof. This means calculating your roof's collection area. A helpful way to determine your roof's collection area is to look up your address in an online mapping program. Switch to satellite view to see what your roof looks like from overhead. Note where the ridges are in your roof and where the rainfall on each section of the roof flows to, whether it's off the edge or through a rain gutter to a downspout. Trace these ridge lines on an overlay of your satellite map or in a mapping program. Identify the areas you plan to collect rainwater from. In this example, water flows off the front roof into gutters located along the front of the roof and down the sides. Downspouts are located on both sides of the garage and left of the entrance. By directing the water flow from these downspouts into swales or shallow depressions in your landscape, water can be collected from several areas of the roof and spread out over a larger area. Next, measure the collection area of your roof. Although you can use the satellite view, a more reliable way to measure your roof is to break the areas into simple geometric shapes like squares, rectangles, and triangles. By finding the area of each geometric shape, you can determine the total square footage of your roof's collection area. Here are some easy formulas to calculate the area of your roof. The area of a rectangle can be determined by multiplying length times width. The area of a triangle can be found by multiplying height times width, or base, and dividing that by 2. Add the square feet of all the areas from which you will collect rainwater. In our example, the total of all the areas that flow through the gutters to the downspout totals 2,665 square feet. Take that area and apply this formula to determine the gallons of water that can be captured from your roof during the first inch of rain. 1 inch of rain times 2,665 square feet of roof times 0.62 equals 1,652.3 gallons of first flush rainwater. Now that you've figured out how many gallons of water you can capture, let's figure out how much space you'll need to store it. First, let's convert the number of gallons into cubic feet. 1 gallon equals 0.13 cubic feet. So 1,652.3 gallons times 0.13 cubic feet equals about 226 cubic feet of water to store. So how do you plan for this storage space in your landscape? Effective rainwater harvesting has 4 steps. You must slow it, spread it, sink it, and store it. If you have gutters, extend your gutter downspouts so the outflow can discharge into the landscape where its force can dissipate. Rainwater rushes off impermeable surfaces quickly, making it difficult to catch. If your impermeable surface is a slope, you can terrace it or use shallow trenches to slow down the water. Use mulch to further slow the flow and feed your soil. Another effective way to slow down rainwater is to spread it over large areas of your landscape using basins or swales that are lower than the surrounding area. As water sinks into the landscape, your spongy, healthy soil stores it for use by your plants later on. Water needs time on the ground in order to sink in. If you're replacing hardscape, consider semi-permeable options such as permeable pavers or flagstone with gaps. These allow at least some water entry into the soil. Storing water in rain barrels or cisterns is another option. However, you'll need considerable capacity to store the first inch of rainwater. Your best option is to store it directly in your landscape first. Improve your soil's water retention by using compost and mulch to create a soil sponge that's ready to absorb and store rainwater.
Now you understand the concepts of capturing rainwater. You have the tools to measure your surface area, figure out how much water you can capture, and how much space you're going to need to store that water. Next, we'll show you how to put it all together in your sustainable landscape.